All right, so let's pick up right where we left off with a little more multi-digit multiplication. We sort of saw in the last video, there's a little bit of carrying happening. It happens in a little bit of a different way. I'd like to do another example. Let's do one that's a little bit longer. So let's do 145 times 24. I'm not going to do any examples here that are so long. Just like with the addition, in theory, as the numbers sort of here get bigger and bigger, the process really stays the same. So it's not so much that doing bigger and bigger numbers is more difficult. It really is only more difficult in that, you're doing more individual multiplication, and it's just sort of more chances to maybe make a mistake. But the process is the same, right? It's not really the case that doing a big, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 digit sort of number is in theory all that more difficult than doing a 2, 3, 4 kind of digit number. In any event, so 145 times 24. So we'll stack it. Times 24. And the basics here, right? So, you might say, okay, so then am I going to do kind of 24 times 5, 24 times 4, and 24 times 1? And, to a certain extent, you could technically, our kind of expanded here, right? This would sort of be 100 plus 40 plus 5. But then also the bottom one expands, and it gets us 24 is a 20 plus 4. And so what's happening here, if we're trying to sort of multiply these sort of two expansions together, what's really happening here is if I've got sort of a 3-digit by a 2-digit, I'm going to end up multiplying so each digit from the bottom by each digit up top. So that means I'm really going to do kind of 4 times 5 and 40 and 100. But I'm also going to do 20 times 5 and 40 and 100. And all of that stuff is going to get added together. So if I sort of expand it out, I'm essentially ending up doing sort of 6 individual multiplication problems. Now our sort of shorthand version, right, in the stacked version, we're going to sort of do all of that a little bit more efficiently. But that's the sort of concept behind what's happening here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the 4. 4 that means 4. I'm going to do 4 times 5, right? 4 times 5 is 20. Great. So what I'll do is I'll mark the 0, and I'll carry the 2 up into the tens place, right? So there's my 20, 2 in the tens, my sort of 0 in the ones place. Done and done. The next multiplication, right? So don't add this yet. You're just multiplying 4 times 4, which would be 16. Now, in some sense, right, this 4 is accounting for 40. So that would really be sort of 4 times 40 is 160 plus 2, which is 20, right, would sort of be a 180. We're not really tracking all that stuff. We're just thinking of this in terms of these sort of short pieces. So we're just going to say 4 times 4 is 16 plus the 2 that's carried over. So you're doing kind of a multiplication and an addition, right? So 4 times 4 is 16 plus this 2 that carried over would be 18. And so, again, I'll mark the 8, and then I'll sort of carry the 1 up to the top. And then I'll sort of finish. 4 times 1 is 4 plus the 1 is 5. And so the first row that I get here is, right, 4 in the ones place times 145. That would get us to 580 if we just did it by itself, right? If we're thinking of this as, 4 times 5 is 20, 4 times 40 is 160, 4 times 100 is 400, and if we add this all together, we would get 580, right? All that stuff syncs up, and that's the idea. So what happens when we now shift to the 2, right? Which is for us now, the 2 is a 20. So how am I going to account for that? So if I just do 2 times 5, that's 10. But this is a 2 that really is a 20. So now instead of that being a 10, it really is like a 100. So if I say 2 times 5 is 10, and I sort of mark a 0 here, and I bring a 1 up here, that's not really giving it the right place value. So because this 2 is in the tens place, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down a line, right, to sort of a second row here, and I'm just going to automatically mark a 0. So this is a 2 that's really a 20, because I don't want to think of this as multiplying by 20 as I go through it. All I'm going to do is mark a 0 here as a placeholder, and then I'm just going to go through 2 times 5 is 10, right? So now what I'm doing is 2 times 5 is 10, carry this down. So the 0 from the 10 is here. I'm going to cross these out because these are from the previous round, right? And so what I'm carrying over now, right? 2 times 5, I'm carrying over the 1 for the 10. So I've got 0 as a placeholder. I've got 2 times 5 is 10, so the 1 carries up, and the 0 is down here. Now, right? So the 0 is now showing up underneath the 2. So everything is kind of shifted over one place from where it was when I was multiplying by 4. But that's on purpose, and that's how all this stuff is going to sync. So now I'm going to do, okay, so going through the cycle, 2 times 4 is 8, plus the 1 that I carried over would be 9. So that's here, right? So that's essentially a 900, right? Because 20 times 5 was 100, so that's sort of a 100 that's carried. This is 20 times 40 would be 800, plus the 100 is my 900. There's nothing there to carry because I'm not bigger than 9. So now my finishing move is just to say 2 times 1 would get me 2. And then the idea is you sort of have that. Everything is sort of in the right place. I'm just going to add those now that they're stacked, right? So 0 and 0 is 0. 8 and 0 is 8. 5 and 9, right, would be 14. So that's 4 here. We'll carry the 1 up. And that's 3,480. And that's going to be our final, right? So sort of multi-digit multiplication has kind of a little bit of everything, honestly, right? You have multiplication, you have some of this sort of addition that we were doing. The carrying is similar to how it was with the addition, but it's like just a little different, right? As always, things are always like changing up just little bits and bits and bits. What should we do? Maybe just like one more? I'll try to do maybe just one more of these a little bit faster. What can I do that's a little different? Maybe a couple zeros in? Maybe we'll do a 3-digit by a 3-digit, but that we'll throw some zeros in the mix. So how about 504 times 320? I didn't officially declare this yet, but the order when we multiply it doesn't matter. Multiplication is commutative. We'll kind of talk about this in the next example. However, I think we're still going to, in general, kind of follow the guide from addition, which is a lot of times we'll just sort of put the larger number on top. I think aesthetically it makes sense here when you obviously have one more digit. In this case, the digits match, but we're still probably going to put that 500 on top and the 320 on the bottom. So we're going to go kind of fast. So what are we going to do? So 0 is my first value in the ones place down here. Anything times 0, so we have what we call a 0 property, which is 0 times any number is going to be 0. The idea here is if I'm, if I'm going to add some number to itself 0 times, I didn't add it at all, I'm just getting 0. So what's going to happen is I'm going to have 4 times 0 is 0, 0 times 0 is 0, 5 times 0 is 0. That first row, all zeros. I mean, in theory, you could even leave that off if you wanted to. My second row is going to come from the 2. I'm going to do a placeholder here. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 0 is 0. Anything times 0 is 0. And 2 times 5 is 10. Right? So that's sort of 10,080 on the bottom. Now, what happens for my third row? Well, now this is a 3 that really is 300. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 2 zeros as a placeholder. Then we'll go 3 times 4 is 12. Right? So 2 is down, carry the 1. 3 times 0 is 0, but plus the 1 is 1, and 3 times 5 is 15. Right? So everything kind of stays very organized. Everything kind of lines up. It's important, right, to sort of keep track of all these zeros. So 0 comes down here. So this number is going to end in a 0. Then if we add, we're going to get an 8. You know, in theory, we've got 3 columns here, but these numbers are not particularly big, so it's not like our carrying is getting out of control. 0 and 0 and 2 is, of course, 2. 0 and 1 is 1. 1 and 5 is 6. And this is here. So this is, where did we end up? 161,280. Something kind of like that. We could do examples till the cows come home, right? We could go, you know, 4 digits times 4 digits, 5 times 5, 6 times 6, you know, 10 times 10. All that's going to happen is this process will sort of expand and continue. You know, we obviously have to multiply, you know, that many more times. But it really is not going to be any different fundamentally from what we're doing here. So that's the basics. That's going to sort of be how we kind of multiply by hand, stacking it up, kind of multiplying by the place value, and then just sort of keeping track of the zeros as we go through it, as we sort of move from up in the place values in our second number. We're sort of making a new row each time, and we're sort of adding an extra 0 each time we sort of go up in place value. So there we have it.